Transformation is never comfortable because it requires burial of the old self. To become wealthy, to become free, you must bury laziness, bury distraction, bury the need for approval. This is why disappearing is necessary, so you can lay down the old identity and rise again with new disciplines, new philosophies, and a new destiny. There are two prisons in life. One is poverty, the other is popularity. Poverty enslaves you to survival. Popularity enslaves you to opinions. If you want freedom, if you want wealth, you must disappear from both, escape the prison of lack, and escape the prison of being seen. Disappear, build, and then re-emerge with power. You do not attract wealth by chance. You attract it by character. And character is not built in the spotlight. It is built in silence, in lonely hours, in unseen effort. To disappear is to trade being noticed today for being remembered tomorrow. It is the art of vanishing from the ordinary so you can reappear extraordinary. Today, I want to give you a roadmap. Not just ideas, but disciplines. Because success is not built on chance, it's built on design. And if you're willing to disappear for a while from the noise of the world, you can reappear with wealth, with freedom, with influence. Here's what we'll uncover together. You'll learn why personal growth always precedes financial growth. You'll discover the miracle of small disciplines, the daily habits that look ordinary but practiced over years, create extraordinary results. And most importantly, you'll learn how to design a life, not drift into one. Because the poor drift, the wealthy design. The poor consume, the wealthy create. The poor spend time, the wealthy invest it. By the time we're done, you'll have not just inspiration, but a strategy, a clear set of steps to disappear from distraction and re-emerge with discipline, direction, and the kind of wealth that doesn't just fill your bank account but shapes your destiny. Let me tell you something I learned early in life. You cannot get rich if you spend like you're already rich. That's one of the simplest yet most powerful lessons anyone can embrace. You see, too many people confuse the appearance of wealth with the foundation of wealth. Driving a car they can't afford, living in a house that drains every paycheck, swiping the credit card for dinners that disappear in an evening. That's not wealth, that's performance. And performances end when the curtain drops. Real wealth is quiet, steady, and deliberate. It's not about showing people what you have, it's about quietly building what nobody can see. I once knew a man who earned twice as much as his neighbor, yet had nothing to show for it. He was always chasing the newest gadget, the fanciest vacation, the upgrade to his lifestyle. The neighbor, however, lived with modesty, invested his surplus, and quietly grew his fortune. Years later, the neighbor was financially free, while the man with the higher income was still trapped in the rat race. That story stayed with me because it proved something critical. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and multiply. So the first discipline is to live below your means. Now, that doesn't mean deprivation. It doesn't mean stripping your life of all joy and comfort. It means creating a margin, a space between what you earn and what you spend. That margin is where freedom is born. That margin is where opportunity lives. And without it, you'll always be chasing the next paycheck, no matter how high your income grows. Here's the strategy. Control lifestyle inflation. Just because your income rises doesn't mean your expenses should. I've seen people double their salary and yet remain broke because the moment they made more, they spent more. The wealthy understand a different principle. They keep expenses relatively stable and increase their investments with every increase in income. That's how you turn raises into riches, not just bigger bills. And here's a practical step anyone can start today. For the next 30 days, track every single dollar. Write it down. Where does it go? Coffee shops, fast food, subscriptions, gadgets, nights out. Track it honestly. Then, at the end of those 30 days, sit down and identify categories where at least 20% can be cut without hurting your quality of life. Maybe it's eating out 3 times a week instead of 5. Maybe it's canceling subscriptions you forgot you even had. Maybe it's learning to cook at home instead of depending on convenience. That 20% is the beginning of your wealth fund. And here's the real test. Don't just cut it, redirect it. Automate those savings into an investment account, a retirement fund, or a growth asset. Make the decision once and let the system carry it forward. That way, the money you no longer spend on impulse will be building your future while you live your life. Wealth isn't about pretending to be rich. It's about designing a life where freedom, not fear, is in control. And that begins with the discipline to live below your means. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was this. Every single dollar that comes into your hands is not just money, it's a seed. And the way you treat that seed will determine the kind of harvest you reap years down the road. Most people look at a dollar as something small, insignificant, something to be spent on coffee, on candy, on something that disappears within minutes. But the wealthy see each dollar differently. They see it as a servant, a worker, a seed with potential to multiply if planted correctly. That shift in perspective is what separates those who remain broke from those who grow wealthy. I remember in my early days, I wasn't wealthy yet, but I had a mentor who drilled this into me. Don't treat money lightly. Don't toss it around without thought. Respect it, and it will respect you. At the time, I was careless. If I had a few dollars, I'd let it slip through my fingers, never asking where it went or what it could have become. But when I started respecting money, budgeting it, directing it, assigning it a job, everything began to change. I realized the smallest dollar could become the start of an empire if I stopped wasting it and started planting it. So the philosophy is clear. Every dollar is a seed. Wasted, it dies with no return. Planted, it grows and produces more. And the strategy is to budget with purpose. Don't let your money drift into oblivion. Every dollar must have an assignment, whether that's to spend for survival, to save for stability, to invest for growth, or to give for significance. Money without direction evaporates. Money with direction multiplies. One of the simplest and most effective systems I've ever used is the 7-0-2-0-1-0 rule. It creates balance, order, and discipline. Live on 70%. That's your rent, your groceries, your transportation, your living expenses. Then take 20% and dedicate it to your future. That's saving and investing, the fuel for your financial independence. And then 10% give it away. Support a cause, help a neighbor, contribute to your community or faith. That 10% ensures money doesn't just make you richer, it makes you bigger, more generous, more connected to something beyond yourself. Now, here's what happens when you apply this rule consistently. First, you take control of your money instead of it controlling you. Second, you create a steady pipeline toward wealth, because that 20% invested every month will grow, thanks to time and compound interest. And third, you create fulfillment, because money without giving feels empty. But when you use money to bless others, it multiplies in ways far beyond numbers. So start small if you must, but start. Respect the dollar. Respect it by tracking it, budgeting it, planting it. The poor see a dollar as something to spend. The wealthy see it as a worker for their future. The question is, will you waste the seed or will you plant it? When I was young and struggling, I used to think that the only way to earn more money was to work more hours. I thought if I could just push harder, stay longer, hustle faster, the marketplace would reward me. But I learned a hard truth. The marketplace doesn't pay you for time. It pays you for the value you bring into that time. Two people can work the same 8 hours. One earns minimum wage, the other earns millions. The difference isn't the clock. The difference is the value. That realization hit me like a lightning bolt. It meant that if I wanted my income to grow, I couldn't just add more hours. I had to add more value. I had to become the kind of person the marketplace would pay more to see, more to hear, more to hire. And that didn't mean waiting for luck. It meant taking responsibility for my own growth. So the philosophy is simple. Don't get trapped in the illusion that time equals money. Time is just the container. Value is what fills it. And the strategy is to build rare and valuable skills. The kind of skills that people desperately need but few have mastered. You see, the world doesn't pay for effort. It pays for solutions. It pays for leadership, for communication, for sales, for strategy, for innovation. The more valuable your skills, the more valuable your time becomes. I'll give you an example from my own journey. Early in my career, I realized I wasn't just selling products. I was selling myself. And if I couldn't communicate effectively, I was stuck. So I made it my mission to master communication, public speaking, persuasion, storytelling. I read books, I practiced, I studied those who were masters at it, and over time, that skill transformed my market value. Opportunities opened up. Doors that were locked before began to swing wide. What changed wasn't the hours I worked, it was the value I carried into those hours. Here's the practical step. Choose one high-demand skill and commit to mastering it within the next 12 months. Just one. Not 10. Not 20. One. Focus creates mastery, and mastery creates value. It could be sales, it could be digital marketing, coding, investing, leadership, negotiation. Pick the one that aligns with where you want to go, and then become so good at it that the marketplace can't ignore you. Think of it this way. A diamond and a rock may come from the same earth, but one is far more valuable because of its rarity and refinement. Your job is to refine yourself into the diamond the marketplace is willing to pay dearly for. So don't chase time, chase value, because when you become more valuable, every hour of your life begins to multiply in worth, and that's when wealth starts to chase you. When I was starting out, I depended on a single paycheck. And let me tell you, that's one of the most dangerous positions you can ever be in. Because if that paycheck stopped, my life stopped. Rent, food, responsibilities, it all collapsed if one stream dried up. I learned quickly that one stream of income is like having one leg to stand on. Lose it, and you're on the ground. Freedom doesn't come from one income. It comes from diversification. It comes from creating enough streams that if one dries up, the river of your life still flows. Think about it. Nature itself teaches us this lesson. A river isn't fed by one source. It's fed by streams, rainfall, underground springs, and that's why it continues to flow even in dry seasons. Your financial life has to operate the same way. If you're relying on one job, one business, one customer, one platform, you're at risk because the world can change, economies can shift, industries can crumble, but if you've built multiple streams, you're never completely dry. The strategy, then, is to combine active and passive income streams. Active streams require your effort, your job, your business, your service. Passive streams, on the other hand, continue to flow, whether you're awake or asleep. Investments, royalties, digital products, real estate, automated businesses. The wealthy build both. They may start with active streams, but they plant those seeds into assets that eventually pay them without their daily labor. That's when time and money finally separate and freedom begins. I remember when I first understood this concept. I had my main work that paid me, but I asked myself, what else can I build? So I started small, teaching what I knew, creating products, writing ideas down, investing a little into ventures outside my main path. At first, each stream was just a trickle, but as I kept adding, the trickles grew. Over time, those extra streams began to pay bills, then build savings, then open opportunities. What was once survival became stability, and eventually freedom. Here's the practical step. Start one new stream this year. Just one. It could be a side business based on your skill. It could be freelancing. It could be creating a small digital product, an ebook, a course, a design. It could be investing in dividend-paying stocks or rental property. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because it never comes. Start with what you have and let it grow. Imagine your financial life like a table. If it has one leg, it's unstable. If it has four, it stands firm. If it has 6 or 8, it can handle almost anything. That's what multiple streams of income do. They give you stability, they give you strength, they give you freedom. So don't build your life on one paycheck. Build streams, build rivers, build a financial life that flows in every season. When I was young, I thought the only way to make more was to work more. Add another hour, another shift, another late night. But let me tell you something important. There's a limit to how many hours you can add. You only get 24 in a day, no matter how hard you grind. If your strategy is only addition, more hours, more hustle, you will eventually hit a ceiling. That's why the wealthy don't think in terms of addition. They think in terms of multiplication. They ask, how can this one effort continue to produce long after I've stopped? Think about it. If you plant one seed in the ground, you don't get one seed back, you get a tree. And that tree doesn't just give you one apple. It gives you a whole harvest, season after season. That's multiplication. That's leverage. The difference between struggling and succeeding is learning how to plant in ways that multiply instead of just add. The strategy is simple but not easy. You must learn to leverage systems, delegation, and assets. Systems mean creating repeatable processes that don't require your constant presence. Delegation means empowering others to do what you don't need to be doing yourself. Assets mean investments, intellectual property, or tools that keep producing value after you've already done the work. That's why someone who builds a book, a course, or a piece of software works once but can sell it thousands of times. That's multiplication. I remember when I was running around trying to do everything myself, answering every phone call, handling every detail, wearing every hat. It worked when things were small, but as things grew, I realized I was the bottleneck. Nothing moved unless I moved. That's when I learned to step back and ask, what can I document? What can I automate? What can I hand off? And the moment I started to do that, my results began to multiply. The work didn't stop when I went to bed. The systems kept moving. The people I trained kept producing. The investments kept growing. My efforts began to expand beyond my hours. Here's the practical step for you. Pick one process you repeat often in your work or life and document it. Write it down step by step. Then ask, can this be automated with technology? Can it be delegated to someone else? Can it be streamlined so it doesn't demand my constant energy? If you do this consistently, you start moving from addition to multiplication. The truth is, wealth isn't built by wearing yourself out. It's built by extending yourself out. Multiplication means your results expand faster than your effort. And when that happens, you'll find that freedom doesn't come from working harder. It comes from working smarter. When most people think about money, they think about buying things. Cars, clothes, vacations, gadgets. But let me tell you, freedom isn't about the things you can buy, it's about the time you can reclaim. The wealthy understand something the average person often misses. Money at its highest use isn't for possessions, it's for freedom. It's for buying back the hours of your life so you can use them for what truly matters. Because here's the truth, every hour you waste on tasks that someone else could do for you cheaper than your own value is an hour you've traded away from your future. I remember when I was young and starting out, I tried to do everything myself. I'd mow the lawn, wash the car, fix the leaks, balance every receipt. It wasn't because I enjoyed it. It was because I thought I was saving money. But in reality, I was losing something more valuable than money, time. I was using the hours I could have spent reading, planning, strategizing, or building a business just to save a few dollars. And then I learned this principle, that money could buy me back my time. When I paid someone else to handle those low-value tasks, I suddenly had hours freed to focus on the high-value work that could change the entire direction of my life. That's the strategy. Use money as a tool to outsource low-value tasks so you can focus on the activities that generate wealth, growth, and freedom. If your time is worth $100 an hour, why spend it on $10 an hour work? Why spend it on repetitive chores that steal the energy you could be using to create? The wealthy are not obsessed with saving every penny. They're obsessed with multiplying every hour. They ask, what is the highest return use of my time right now? And then they make sure their money buys back as many of those hours as possible. Now, this doesn't mean you avoid discipline or hard work. It doesn't mean you never take responsibility. It means you're strategic. If you can spend $50 to reclaim 5 hours, and you use those 5 hours to create opportunities worth hundreds or thousands, you've just used money at its highest level of power. And the truth is, those who keep their hands tied to every small task usually stay small. Those who free themselves to focus on growth often rise. So here's a practical step. Make a list of everything you do in a week. Mark the tasks that don't require your unique ability or don't generate significant value. Then ask yourself, can I delegate this, automate this, or eliminate this? Start small. Hire someone to handle errands. Use technology to automate bills. Outsource a task you dread. And then use the time you reclaim to study, to create, to strategize, to build. Because wealth isn't about how much you can accumulate, it's about how much of your life you can take back. And the moment you learn to use money to buy back your time, you begin to move closer to true freedom. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned about money wasn't about numbers, it was about emotions. You see, more wealth has been lost to fear and greed than to bad math or bad investments. The numbers don't usually fail people, it's their emotions that do. When fear takes over, people sell when they should hold. When greed takes over, they buy into the hype at the very top. And when impatience sets in, they abandon the steady path for shortcuts that lead them right back to zero. I've met people who were intelligent, disciplined in their work, and even good at making money. But the moment the markets dipped, they panicked. They sold everything at a loss. Later, when the headline screamed about a stock that had already tripled, they rushed in only to watch it collapse. The truth is, they weren't losing to the marketplace, they were losing to themselves. Wealth, at its core, isn't just a battle of knowledge, it's a battle of self-control. The wealthy learn to master their emotions when it comes to money. They stay calm when the storms hit. They're patient when others chase the quick thrill of hype. They understand that markets rise and fall, opportunities come and go, and fear and greed are just traps waiting for the unprepared. Instead of reacting to every emotional wave, they hold steady to their plan, their principles, their rules, And that's the strategy. Create rules for yourself that protect you from yourself. Don't let money become an emotional roller coaster that dictates your peace of mind. Decide in advance, I will not sell out of fear. I will not buy out of greed. I will not chase shortcuts. Write these rules down, because in the heat of the moment, when the crowd is shouting and the emotions are high, it's easy to forget. But written rules are an anchor. They keep you steady when the storm tries to pull you away. Here's a practical step you can take. Sit down and write out your personal financial commandments. It doesn't need to be complicated. Something as simple as, I only invest what I understand. I never risk money I cannot afford to lose. I won't make financial decisions based on headlines or hype. Keep those rules where you can see them. Review them before you make big money decisions. It's like giving your future self a voice of reason, one that can whisper, stay calm, stay patient, stay disciplined, when your emotions are screaming the opposite. Because wealth is rarely built by the smartest person in the room, it's built by the most disciplined. And if you can master your emotions around money, you'll be ahead of the vast majority who let fear and greed steal their future. The market may test you, the world may test you, but when you pass the test of emotional control, your wealth has a foundation no storm can shake. One of the disciplines that completely altered the course of my life was the simple act of keeping a journal. At first, it didn't seem like much. Just a notebook, a pen, and a few scribbled thoughts at the end of the day. But over time, I realized something powerful. The weakest ink is still stronger than the strongest memory. What you think you'll remember, you won't fade. What seems clear today will fade tomorrow. But if you capture it, if you write it down, you preserve wisdom that can serve you for a lifetime. I used to attend seminars, read books, and listen to mentors, and I thought I'd hold on to their wisdom just because it felt impactful in the moment. But days later, I'd find myself struggling to recall the details. That's when I discovered the secret of a journal. When you put pen to paper, you're not just recording information, you're anchoring it into your mind, into your philosophy, into your habits. A journal becomes more than notes. It becomes a record of your growth. And here's the strategy. Don't rely on memory, rely on capture. Capture your lessons, your ideas, even your mistakes. Write down the insight you gained from a tough conversation, the strategy you discovered from a book, or the costly error you don't want to repeat. A mistake documented becomes a lesson, while a mistake forgotten is simply repeated. A good idea written down becomes a seed you can plant and grow. A good idea left floating in your head disappears like smoke. Think of your journal as a private conversation with your future self. When you read back over months and years of entries, you see the patterns of your thinking. You'll notice how your philosophy has evolved, how far you've come, and where you still stumble. It's like holding up a mirror that reflects not your face, but your progress. Now, here's a simple practical step. Every night, before you sleep, give yourself just 10 minutes to write. Reflect on 3 things: what you learned, what you earned, and what you spent. What did you learn today that will serve you tomorrow? What value did you create or receive? And where did your money, time, or energy go that could have been better invested? Over weeks and months, these entries compound into wisdom. You'll have a detailed log of how you think, how you grow, and how you handle money and life. Most people let their days slip by undocumented as if their experiences have no value. But the wealthy, the wise, the intentional, they capture their journey. They don't leave their growth to chance. If you make journaling a daily discipline, you'll discover it's not just ink on paper, it's a map of your transformation. And one day, when you look back, you'll see not just where you were, but how far you've come. Step by step, page by page. If there's one thing I've learned about success, it's this: wealth doesn't arrive by accident. No, wealth is built brick by brick through disciplined routines. Random schedules create random results, but intentional routines, those quiet, consistent habits you repeat day after day, become the architecture of a fortune. I've seen it in my own life. When I lived without a routine, I drifted. I wasted time. I spent loosely. I made excuses. I told myself, I'll get serious tomorrow. But here's the truth. Tomorrow only improves if today is structured with discipline. Wealth doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to rituals. The wealthy don't just have more money, they have better routines. Here's the philosophy: build your life around habits that guarantee growth. Don't leave your financial destiny to chance. The routines you build either pull you toward freedom or push you toward frustration. Think about it. If every week you review your goals, track your spending, and plan your investments, do you think your financial life will drift? Of course not. You'll steer it like a captain steering his ship. Without routines, you're tossed by the waves. With routines, you set your own course. The strategy is simple. Anchor wealth habits into your daily and weekly rituals. Instead of checking your phone first thing in the morning, spend 10 minutes reviewing your goals. Instead of waiting for the end of the year to realize you're broke, track your spending weekly so you can adjust in real time. Instead of wondering why investments never happen, make it a Sunday ritual to review opportunities and commit to one small action that moves you forward. The wealthy ritualize their progress. The poor romanticize their intentions. Now let me give you a practical step to begin with. Set aside 1 hour each week, same time, same day, for your wealth ritual. Treat it like a sacred appointment. During that hour, review your financial goals. Ask yourself, am I on track? Track your spending from the week. Where did the money go? Was it invested in your future or wasted on impulses? Then, plan your next investment move. It doesn't have to be grand. Maybe it's putting $100 into an index fund. Maybe it's setting aside capital for a small business. Maybe it's just building your emergency fund. But that weekly habit compounds into something extraordinary. Here's what I discovered. Routines give you power. They take the guesswork out of success. And when you repeat them long enough, they become automatic, wealth habits that run in the background of your life. Most people live on random, but if you want freedom, if you want fortune, live on ritual. Build routines that build you, and soon enough, those routines will build your fortune. One of the greatest paradoxes of life is this: the more you give, the more you seem to have. At first it sounds backward. Common sense says if you give something away, you end up with less. But wisdom says the opposite. Contribution multiplies wealth. The secret to truly living is giving, because money is not just a tool to spend, it's a tool to circulate, to create, and to bless. When you commit to sharing part of your resources, whether it's money, time, or knowledge, you set in motion a cycle that always finds its way back to you, often multiplied. I remember when I was struggling, barely making ends meet. Someone advised me, even if you have only a little, give a little. At first I resisted. I thought, how can I give when I don't even have enough for myself? But here's what I discovered. Giving reshaped my relationship with money. Instead of clinging to every dollar out of fear, I began to see money as a flow. When I gave, I didn't shrink, I expanded. I grew in character, in perspective, and eventually in wealth. Here's the philosophy. Giving is not subtraction, it's multiplication. Contribution teaches you that abundance is not about accumulation, it's about circulation. A stagnant pond begins to rot, but a flowing river stays alive. Money works the same way. If it only flows to you, it makes you selfish, fearful, and eventually stuck. But when it flows through you, it keeps expanding. The wealthy understand this. They give because they know generosity attracts abundance. The strategy is to commit to sharing a consistent portion of your resources, not when it's convenient, not only when you feel like it, but as a principle. Give 5 to 10% of your income to causes you believe in. Support your community. Mentor someone who's a step behind you. Invest your time into people who can benefit from your knowledge. Every act of giving creates invisible dividends that will return to you in ways you can't always predict. Opportunities, relationships, peace of mind. And here's a practical way to start. Every time money comes into your hand, set aside a portion for giving. Treat it like rent you pay for living on this earth. If you earn $100, give $5 or $10 to a cause, a person, a community project. If you don't have much money yet, give your time or your skills. Offer to mentor a young person. Volunteer for an hour a week. The habit matters more than the amount, because what you're really building is not just generosity, it's the identity of someone who has more than enough to share. And here's the miracle. As you give, you grow. You grow in gratitude, you grow in discipline, you grow in wealth. Contribution multiplies what you already have because it transforms who you are. And when you become more, you inevitably attract more. So give, not just because the world needs it, but because you need it to become the person capable of extraordinary wealth and freedom. There comes a point in life when the question is no longer, how much can I earn? But what will remain when I'm gone? Money spent will vanish, possessions will decay, but impact, that's the only currency that outlives us. Legacy is the highest form of wealth. True wealth is not just about the size of your bank account. It's about the imprint you leave on others, the ideas, the businesses, the values that keep working even when you're no longer here to direct them. I once heard it said, you die twice. Once when you take your last breath, and once when your name is spoken for the last time. The question I had to wrestle with was, will my name disappear quickly, or will it live in the lessons I taught, the people I helped, the systems I built? That thought reshaped how I approached success. It wasn't enough to make money for myself. I had to build something that would last, something that could bless others long after I was gone. Here's the philosophy. Legacy is wealth's ultimate test. Anyone can spend money. Many can accumulate it. But few design their life in a way that their work, their teachings, or their contributions carry forward into the future. When you start thinking in terms of legacy, you begin to elevate your standard. You stop asking, what's in it for me today? And start asking, what will endure tomorrow? The strategy is to deliberately focus on creating something that doesn't require your daily presence to keep existing. That might mean building a business with systems that will thrive long after you. It might mean writing a book, teaching principles, or mentoring others so your wisdom doesn't die with you. It might mean contributing to your community in a way that sets roots for the next generation. Wealth without legacy is temporary applause. Wealth with legacy is a standing ovation that continues long after you've left the stage. Now, here's a practical step. Start one project designed to outlive you. Just one. It could be small in the beginning, but the intention is what matters. Maybe you create a fund for scholarships that supports young people every year. Maybe you write down your principles, your philosophy, your hard-learned lessons, and pass them on to your children, your team, or even strangers who will pick them up decades from now. Maybe you design a business that doesn't collapse when you walk away, but instead grows stronger because you built it on solid foundations. And here's the truth I've seen over and over. Those who think about legacy live differently. They live with more purpose, more patience, more vision. They're not just chasing the next dollar. They're planting seeds in fields they may never walk in, but others will. And isn't that the highest form of wealth? To know that long after your final day, your life is still paying dividends to the world. Success has often been made to look like some grand event, a lucky break, or a big leap. But in truth, it's none of those things. Wealth, freedom, transformation. These are not born out of one extraordinary act, but from the ordinary disciplines repeated consistently. Success is simply a handful of small practices done daily that compound over time into a life you can hardly recognize from where you started. When I was younger, I used to look at the wealthy and imagine they must have taken some giant leap. Maybe they were just lucky, maybe they knew the right people, maybe they had some hidden advantage. But as I got closer to them, as I learned from them, I realized something that changed my life. Their wealth was built not by luck, but by daily habits. They didn't win the lottery. They didn't stumble into freedom. They crafted it, step by step, decision by decision, day by day. The philosophy here is simple yet profound. Small disciplines are the seeds of great results. Reading a few pages today may not make you a scholar. Saving a few dollars won't make you rich. Reviewing your goals tonight won't transform your future tomorrow. But string those disciplines together over a year, over 5 years, over a decade, and suddenly you've built something monumental. Most people underestimate what steady discipline can do because the results don't show up instantly. But that's where patience and faith in the process come in. The wealthy trust compounding, not just in money, but in habits. The strategy then is to trust the process of compounding habits. Don't get distracted by quick results. And don't get discouraged when you don't see overnight change. Imagine if you lifted a small weight every day. At first, it feels insignificant, but keep at it. And one day you'll look in the mirror and realize your entire body has changed. That's how wealth works. That's how character works. It's invisible at first, then undeniable later. A practical step is to choose 3 daily non-negotiables. Small, simple disciplines that you will not compromise on. For me, it was reading daily, saving daily, and reviewing my goals nightly. Even on the busiest days, even when I was tired, I made sure those 3 happened. And let me tell you, the discipline of sticking to those 3 reshaped the trajectory of my life. Reading kept my mind sharp and expanding. Saving, even if it was a small amount, built the muscle of discipline and security. Reviewing my goals each night kept me aligned with the bigger vision, so I never wandered too far off course. And here's the powerful truth. Wealth and success don't come from intensity once in a while, but from consistency every single day. What you do occasionally might feel impressive, but what you do daily defines who you become. If you want to transform your future, master the simple disciplines. Because in the end, success isn't complicated, it's just uncommon. Ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you with this. Wealth, freedom, transformation, none of it comes overnight, and none of it comes by accident. It comes by choice, by discipline, by philosophy turned into practice. You don't have to start with money, but you must start with intention. You don't need the perfect conditions, but you do need the right habits. The seed of your future is already in your hands. The question is whether you'll plant it or waste it. Remember, success is not about extraordinary talent. It's about ordinary disciplines practiced faithfully. Read a little every day. Save a little every day. Review your goals every day. Do it so consistently that it becomes who you are, not just what you do. And as you do, life begins to reward you. First in small ways, then in ways beyond what you imagined.